A government shutdown in the United States is one of those political events that sounds dramatic, but most people aren't exactly sure what it really means until it hits their daily lives. In 2025, as lawmakers in Washington once again face a funding standoff, the big question isn't just whether a shutdown will happen, it's what actually happens next, and how it could affect you. To understand the situation clearly, let's break it down in plain language. The U.S. government runs on money approved by Congress, and that money is divided into budgets for different departments and programs. Each year, or sometimes multiple times a year, Congress has to pass spending bills to keep agencies running. If Congress fails to agree on a budget, or at least a temporary extension called a continuing resolution, parts of the government literally run out of funding. That's what sparks a shutdown. Some agencies keep going, others stop, and millions of federal workers are caught in the middle. When a shutdown begins, the first big impact is on federal employees. There are about 2 million civilian workers employed by the federal government, not including military personnel. In a shutdown, they fall into two categories: essential and non-essential. Essential workers, like Border Patrol agents, air traffic controllers, and members of the military, still have to report for duty. But here's the catch: they often work without pay until the shutdown ends. Non-essential workers, on the other hand, are placed on furlough, which is essentially an unpaid leave. They stay home and wait until the government reopens, at which point Congress usually passes a bill to give them back pay. But during the shutdown itself, they're left without a paycheck. The second impact is on public services. National parks and museums often close or operate with reduced staff. Passport processing, visa applications, and many forms of government paperwork can be delayed or paused altogether. If you need help from the IRS, Social Security offices, or small business loan programs, you could be stuck waiting. Everyday people may not notice the effects immediately, but over time, the ripple spreads, especially for anyone dealing directly with federal agencies. Now, let's talk about what doesn't stop. Critical programs like Social Security checks, Medicare, Medicaid, and unemployment benefits keep flowing because they are considered mandatory spending, not discretionary. The U.S. Postal Service keeps delivering mail since it's funded separately. And the military stays active, though as mentioned, service members may have to go without pay until lawmakers sort things out. Planes still fly, law enforcement still operates, and basic government functions tied to public safety continue. But the longer the shutdown drags on, the more cracks appear in everyday systems. From a political perspective, shutdowns are essentially a game of chicken between parties in Congress, often tied to disputes over spending levels, social programs, or broader political issues. In 2025, debates over the federal budget once again highlight the deep divisions in Washington. Both sides often try to frame the shutdown as the other side's fault, pointing fingers while the public grows frustrated. Historically, shutdowns have hurt politicians' approval ratings, but that doesn't always stop them from using the tactic as leverage in negotiations. Economically, the longer a shutdown continues, the bigger the cost. Federal contractors miss out on billions of dollars in payments. Families that rely on government services face uncertainty. And the national economy takes a hit. Analysts estimate that even a short shutdown can shave billions off the country's GDP. While the money is usually restored once government funding resumes, the temporary disruptions cause real pain for workers, businesses, and communities. It's not just a political drama in Washington, it has tangible consequences across the nation. Another factor to consider is timing. If a shutdown happens early in the fiscal year, agencies may be able to shuffle some funds to delay the worst effects. But if it happens during tax season, travel season, or amid a crisis like a natural disaster, the strain on public services becomes much more obvious. Imagine trying to get disaster relief after a hurricane when the agency responsible is only partially staffed. These are the kinds of scenarios that keep people worried during a shutdown. One of the most common questions people ask is whether a government shutdown means the U.S. government literally stops functioning. The answer is no, the lights don't just go out across the country. Instead, what happens is more like a slowdown or partial freeze. Essential services continue, but many routine operations grind to a halt. For ordinary citizens, it can feel confusing, inconsistent, and frustrating. So what happens next in 2025? That depends on how quickly lawmakers in Congress can come to an agreement on funding. If they pass a continuing resolution, the government stays open temporarily while negotiations continue. If they fail, the shutdown begins, and pressure mounts on both sides to strike a deal. Historically, shutdowns have lasted anywhere from a single day to over a month, with the 2018-2019 shutdown setting the record at 35 days. The longer it lasts, the more pressure builds from the public, the business community, and even federal workers themselves to get things moving again. Ultimately, the cycle of government shutdowns has become a symptom of deeper gridlock in American politics. Instead of steady, predictable budgeting, the nation lurches from deadline to deadline, sometimes falling off the cliff into shutdown territory. The real question for 2025 isn't just whether we'll have a shutdown, but whether Congress can find a more sustainable way to govern without constant brinkmanship. Until that happens, shutdowns will remain a recurring chapter in the story of American politics. For now, what everyday Americans need to know is that a shutdown doesn't mean everything stops, but it does mean delays, disruptions, and uncertainty. Federal workers may go without paychecks, families may struggle with stalled services, and the economy may feel the drag. And while politicians argue over who's to blame, millions of people end up caught in the middle. The hope, of course, is that lawmakers will resolve their differences quickly. But if history is any guide, the road ahead could be bumpy.